My name is Dr. Chow Jia-Yi, and I'm the Associate Dean at the Office of Teacher Education. So it's my pleasure to also talk to you and share with you a little bit more about the BA BSc Ed program, as well as the NTU NIE Teaching Scholars program. So you're probably at a crossroad here. You have lots of options, and if you think that teaching is something that you are very passionate about, I think this is the right place to come to, NTU NIE. And obviously, there are many options, as I mentioned to you. You could go for the postgraduate diploma program, the 16 months program, or maybe you want to consider the BA BSc education program, which the TSP, Teaching Scholars program, sits on. So what exactly is the NTU NIE Teaching Scholars program? It was actually first launched in August 2014 with a very small cohort. It is one of the 4 premier scholars program in NTU. It is a prestigious program, and it is really looking at providing this opportunity for outstanding young persons with a passion and a calling for teaching. And we really want to develop and help support young people with a passion in teaching, and really looking for them to be a leader in education. So we are looking for graduates with intellectual rigor, strong leadership, and obviously having them with a global perspective as well. Now this is actually a write-up on our very first cohort, and you could see here on the screen there's this lady here. Her name is Si Yue, and she's actually from the first pioneer cohort of Teaching Scholars program. And you can see that there was a write-up about her. And the Teaching Scholars program emphasizes a lot on deep content coverage, broadening as well in terms of providing electives. There is an opportunity for even to do a minor, and there is strong emphasis on inquiry-based learning, and of course providing that global perspective for our student teachers in the Teaching Scholars program. And this is just a short write-up of 2 of our student teachers from the very first cohort as well. You could see here this is Jia Xun and this is Roisman. So Jia Xun was very interested in teaching, and he found out a little bit more about the Teaching Scholars program, obviously because it was fairly new then. And he really made up his mind. He chose TSP because he felt very strongly that this would be the best program to support him if he wants to be the best educator he can be. Now, Roisman here also chose TSP, and he was also very clear. He could have gone anywhere to do his undergrad study, but he chose TSP also because he doesn't just want to be good at physics. He wants to be good at teaching physics as well. So there's a passion and there's a calling for him to be an educator. And he chose TSP. And these are a few of our other students, graduates as well as current students, who also have different reasons for choosing the Teaching Scholars program, coming from the A-level route, the IB route, and obviously also the Poly route as well. So perhaps a quick comparison between the PGDE 16 months program as well as the BA BSc Teaching Scholars program here. So length of study for the PGDE program, obviously you need to do a bachelor's degree, and then you come to NIE, NTU to do a 16 months postgraduate diploma program. So the total duration of study could be 4 plus another 16 months or so. But for the BA BSc and the TSP program, it's a 4 years direct honors program. So obviously a bit shorter than the PGDE program. There's a lot of emphasis for the BA BSc TSP program to undertake a content research. So all our student teachers have to complete a final year project in the TSP and the BA BSc program. In fact, it's very strong emphasis on inquiry, and our students in the BA BSc TSP program also need to do educational research. So that has to do obviously with education. So really there's a very strong theory practice nexus here. Depth of content, interestingly, for some of our students coming into our PGDE program, prior to them coming in, some of them do need to do what we call content upgrading, because some of the content that they take may not be adequate for the purpose of preparing them for education to be a teacher. Whereas for the BA BSc program, content coverage is deep, is adequate. They are majoring in a subject that is at the undergraduate level. Breadth of the program, yes. Obviously, if you're undergrad, you can take electives. And for the BA, BSc, TSP program, there are lots of opportunities for broadening. So semester exchange, yes. Electives, any of the electives in NTU, they can take. We also can take some of the electives that are offered only in the Premier Scholars program. And as I mentioned earlier as well, our students can actually take any of the NTU minors. So in fact, Roisman, the student that I talked about earlier on, actually graduated with a BSc and he majored in physics, but also a minor in psychology. Master's courses, for our program, if you do well, we actually offer you the opportunity to do a master's course or master courses, just to give you a head start and to give you perhaps some sampling of the kind of work that you can do at the master's level. Practicum. Practicum is basically like an internship where you spend time in the schools. For the PGDE program, there are 2 practicum stints. For the BA, BSc, TSP program, there are 4 practicum stints. So every year you go out to the school, and it is developmental. So we don't throw you into the deep end. Every year is a little bit different. So the first year you have 2 weeks of school experience. Second year there's 5 weeks of teaching assistantship. Third week is 5 weeks as well, and then the last one is 10 weeks. Sponsor overseas experience, yes, I think if you come through a typical undergraduate program, you can actually go for semester exchange. For us at the BA, BSc, TSP program, we strongly encourage our student teachers to go on semester exchange. And in fact, we are able to sponsor you to spend time away for a semester in overseas universities. So we also have what we call international practicum, and this is unique to our program, where in the third year of study, they can actually spend some time away in another country, in another school, to have a taste and to experience teaching in another education context. I think that's very valuable, and that really strengthens the theory-practice nexus and also provide that global perspective. Some of our students, when they do inquiry-based learning, like your final year project and educational research, if they do have very interesting results and findings from their inquiry work, they can actually present some of this work at an international conference, which some of our student teachers have actually done so previously. Accommodation. For our BA, BSc, TSP program, you are guaranteed hall stay for 4 years with us, and is fully sponsored as well. In fact, for the first 2 years, you will be able to stay on campus at either Pioneer or Crescent Hall. So I've shared very briefly, perhaps, yes, both the PGDE 16 months program and the BA, BSc, TSP programs are good programs. They are good programs. But perhaps if there is a choice for us, the preferred pathway is really for someone to come through the BA, BSc, TSP program. Is it a better program for student teachers? Like I say, both PGDE and the BA, BSc, TSP programs are good programs. But really for us, like I mentioned to you, the BA, BSc, TSP program is our preferred pathway if we have the option to encourage you to do so. So perhaps why maybe we think it's a better program? It is a better program to really to meet the challenges for teacher preparation. And what do I mean by that? There's a tendency for us to undervalue content. So as I mentioned to you earlier on, some of our students that come through the undergraduate programs coming into our PGDE program, prior to them coming in, some of them are required to do what we call content upgrading. So some of the content that they've taken at the undergraduate level perhaps may not be adequate enough for the teacher preparation journey with us. The second challenge is about underrating practice. So every one of us have been in a classroom setting, and we think that we perhaps can all teach as well, but not necessarily. The practicum stint is very, very critical. And for the BA, BSc, TSP program, we offer that 4 practicum stints to you, where you can really spend time in the school, making connections with what you have done in the classroom setting with how the practice should look like in really a school setting. So the practice is very, very critical for us, and that 4 years, that time spent with us provides the opportunity and the platform for us to work with you and to better prepare you to be an educator. Underestimating your own role. So why do I need a teacher when I've got Google? Well, we are not just a teacher of the subject, we are really a teacher of the person, the student. So please do not undervalue your role, really, because NIE's vision for the 21st century teacher is really a shaper of character, a creator of knowledge, a facilitator of learning, an architect of learning environment, and also a leader of educational change. So the role that is played by a teacher, educator is significant. So why choose NTU NIE? Obviously a critical question that you need to ask yourself that. So we are an exciting young university. We are highly ranked, 11 in the world. We are the first ranked university in terms of being a young university under 50 years old. But in terms of teacher education and education per se, we are also highly ranked as well. You could see here on the slide, 14th in the world and second in Asia. And this is obviously in 2019. We have strong partnerships with many universities around the world. We talked about semester exchange. We're able to send our students to some of these universities, and obviously for international practicum as well. We have many strong content experts here. I think the typical perception is perhaps that NTU, NIE specifically, focus a lot on education. Yes, it is true, but also we have very, very strong content experts here. So you could see these are just some examples of the content experts that we have in NIE, strong in their own area, strong in their own content specialization. Like Professor Loh Yi-Ling, who is also the Dean of Teacher Education, did her PhD at Cambridge, and she is a research scholar and a research expert in the area of linguistics. Yeah. So we have Shi Sun Yuan as well, Prof. Shi Sun Yuan, who is a leading researcher in plasma physics. So he actually has a space laboratory here in NIE. So as mentioned about Prof. Shi's work, and this is really the plasma space actuation chamber. So our student teachers also undertake a lot of field work, very hands-on, applied practical work as well. To highlight to you the BA BSc program, it is not a Bachelor of Education degree program, it is a BA BSc education program. So you are majoring in the area of arts or humanities or sciences in this program. So it could be, for example, in a BA, it could be any of the humanities subjects, it could be language, in the BSc would be the sciences, it could be your physics, chem, biology, physical education as well, math as well. As I mentioned earlier on, it is a direct honors program, a strong coverage in terms of the content, there's deepening, there's broadening. I mentioned about master's level courses, the opportunity to take some of that, and very strong emphasis on research work in the content area, as well as obviously in education. So these are just examples of some of our students who have been through the BA BSc program, who actually completed masters in the content area, after finishing their time with us here. And they did their masters in very well-known universities around the world. Like Aaron, for example, did a master's in research, drug development and discovery at Imperial College. And these are some of the examples, like Crystal and Jasper. Remember I highlighted this student teacher earlier on, Jiaxun, who I mentioned that he did a lot of research to find out a little bit more about the TSP program before deciding on our program. So he completed his BSc with us. He's a teaching scholar, and he therefore thereafter went on to do a Masters of Science in Applied Biosciences at Imperial College London. He just recently completed his study. He's now back teaching in a school. So it speaks volume when our student teachers and our students from our Teaching Scholars program, the BA BSc program, upon graduation from our program, are able to do a graduate study in some of these very well-known universities. It speaks volume in terms of the rigor of our program. So really, get an educational experience with us. I talk about global lessons, opportunity for semester exchange, international practicum, participation in international conferences, real-world learning as well. We have an internship program where our student teachers can spend some time not in the schools per se, but in the industry, in the private organizations where perhaps there is some emphasis on education. So for example, some of our student teachers have spent time at the Ministry of Health, HPB, at the museums, where they work with some of these partners to create learning journeys, educational materials, for example, where they are able to see how education-related industry work at the same time. Community engagement, I think this is something that we value a lot as well, the values-based education, where they are involved in community service or service learning projects. Residential experience, I mentioned about the accommodation that's sponsored 4 years, so a lot of learning can also take place at the Hall of Residence as well. So these are just some pictures of our students spending time away for the international practicum in Finland, in Hong Kong, in Denmark. So a lot of opportunity in the UK, lots of opportunities for student teachers to spend some time and broaden their perspective. So this is a world map, and these are just some of the partners that we have around the world. You could see spending time there as part of semester exchange as well as international practicum. So this is about our internship program I mentioned earlier on. This is an example of KJ, our student teacher, who spent some time at Bollywood Veggies, and he really helped to broaden his perspective. The service and leadership training program, which is a community engagement where we have our student teachers spend time like in Cambodia and in Vietnam, where they are able to work with kids and children in some of the village schools. They can again find that opportunity and a platform to make connections with what they do in the classroom here in terms of the courses, and then make the lessons come alive in these other contexts as well. So this is another slide that shows some of the work that we've done in Phnom Penh and Siem Reap as part of the community engagement for our student teachers. I'll talk about residential experience, and as I mentioned, guaranteed hall stay, and they really get the opportunity to interact with the other NTU students in the halls, and lots of opportunities for residential learning as well. So yes, so what are the typical questions from applicants? Is the BA, BSc degree limiting? I think I probably addressed that earlier on. I shared about how our student teachers, upon graduation, are able to go on and do master's degree in the content area. That speaks volume, as I mentioned, and the rigor about our program. Is there enough content coverage? I think I also addressed this very in-depth content coverage to allow them to do a graduate study in that content area. This is an interesting question. Why is my teacher advising me to go through the PGDE pathway? I guess because many of our teachers in the school have actually gone through the PGDE pathway. So they are more familiar with that pathway. And as I mentioned, it is also a very good program, the PGDE 16 months program. But if there's a preference for us, then the preferred pathway is really for our students to go through the BA, BSc and the Teaching Scholars program, because we get to spend more time with you. So get the best education you can get to be the best educator you can be. As I mentioned to you, there are lots of options for you now. You are at a crossroad. But I hope with this sharing, I've given you enough information and knowledge to perhaps make an informed decision, especially if really there is a passion for teaching. So these are our contacts, and please do get in touch with us to find out a little bit more about the program, and we would love to interact and engage you. Thank you.